The year is 1883, and your life begins in a modest stone house in Pradapio, Italy. The world you're entering isn't gentle or kind, it's gritty, rugged, and raw. You come kicking and screaming into existence, a tiny infant, weighing hardly more than a small melon, entirely unaware of the tumultuous future that awaits. Your father, Alessandro Mussolini, is the village blacksmith. His hands are rough and calloused, stained black from iron and soot. When he's not hammering away at his forge, he's passionately arguing about socialism, revolution, and workers' rights. Alessandro is a fierce socialist, charismatic, loud, determined. He sees injustice everywhere and rarely misses an opportunity to speak his mind. Your mother, Rosa Maltoni, is gentle but firm, the village schoolteacher. She is devoutly religious, a committed Catholic, and tries her best to instill traditional Christian values into you and your siblings. While your father dreams of revolution, your mother hopes for peace, stability, and harmony. From your first moments, you're caught between these two vastly different worlds. As an infant, you hardly notice. At 5, you start attending school in your mother's classroom. Rosie is patient but firm. Education is serious business for her, and she expects the best. Your early days in school prove challenging. You're easily bored, constantly distracted, and bursting with restless energy. While other children sit quietly, memorizing lessons obediently, you're bouncing around, disrupting class. Your mother reprimands you frequently, but your personality proves difficult to tame. As the years pass, your disruptive behavior worsens. At 7, your restless energy reaches new levels. Teachers, other than your mother, begin noticing your defiant attitude. Reports come home saying Benito is smart but uncontrollable, brilliant but wild. Your father finds this amusing, proud even. He sees a fighter, a revolutionary spirit forming in you. Your mother worries deeply. She fears you'll alienate yourself, making enemies and limiting your future. As you grow older, your parents' conflicting ideals become more pronounced in your life. Your father often takes you aside to passionately explain socialist beliefs. He teaches you that society is unjust, workers are oppressed, and powerful elites must be overthrown. His words light a fire in your young mind. Your mother, meanwhile, tries to instill in you humility, patience, and religious devotion. You're torn between two compelling yet opposite ideals, pulling you apart from within. When you're around 9 years old, a significant event leaves an imprint on you forever. A strike breaks out in your village, and your father, Alessandro, is at the forefront. You watch from a safe distance as he passionately shouts slogans demanding justice for the working class. You feel proud, inspired even. Then local police intervene, beating protesters back with clubs. Alessandro comes home that night, bruised and bloody, limping. His face swollen, eyes full of rage. He tells you this is the true cost of standing up for what's right. A vivid, brutal lesson you'll never forget. This event deeply shapes your early worldview. You begin to view society as fundamentally unfair and that real change requires struggle, sacrifice, and confrontation. You develop a combative, confrontational personality, challenging authority at every opportunity, from school teachers to local priests. Conflict becomes second nature to you. You're naturally argumentative and quick-tempered, making more enemies than friends. By age 11, your behavior lands you in frequent trouble at school. Teachers are fed up, and fellow students avoid you. You've become somewhat of an outsider. This isolation fuels your bitterness. You blame others for not understanding you, for being weak, and you convince yourself that someday they'll recognize your brilliance. It's a lonely childhood, filled with conflict and turmoil. At 14, the struggle at home grows unbearable. Arguments between your parents escalate. Alessandro continues passionately advocating revolution, often clashing with Rosa's devout, conservative Catholicism. You find yourself trapped, emotionally exhausted by their fights. The friction between your parents reflects the turmoil raging inside you, between rebellion and tradition, confrontation and harmony. Frustrated, you run away multiple times, wandering for days through neighboring towns. Each time you eventually return home, exhausted, hungry, but stubbornly refusing to apologize. Your father's pride in your stubbornness only strengthens your resolve. He sees your rebellion as courage, reinforcing your defiant streak. As a teenager, your growing frustration turns physical. You engage in frequent fistfights, brawling with other young men in town. Often smaller than your opponents, you nevertheless fight fiercely, with a determination that startles older kids. You bear bruises, black eyes, split lips as badges of pride, symbols of your stubborn bravery. Though your body aches, your pride swells. At 16, despite constant discipline issues, you're recognized as exceptionally intelligent. You excel academically when motivated, quickly absorbing philosophy, history, and politics. Your teachers recognize your potential, but fear your radical ideas. Privately, many educators believe you're dangerous, your brilliance matched only by your unpredictability. Your mother, desperately seeking stability for you, arranges for you to attend a Catholic boarding school, hoping strict religious instruction will correct your course. It doesn't. Instead, you rebel more fiercely, openly mocking religion, getting into trouble, expelled repeatedly from multiple schools. Eventually, your formal education ends prematurely. Traditional schooling clearly can't contain you. By 18, your childhood has been tumultuous. Years of rebellion, conflict, and isolation have defined your youth. You're fiercely intelligent, but untamed, misunderstood, and now uneducated. Your future appears uncertain, but deep inside you burns a fire. A determination, a belief that someday, somehow, you'll rise above your origins and prove yourself. You believe you'll shape history, bending the world to your will. Little do you know how dramatically true that belief will become, or the devastation your ambition will ultimately cause. This was your childhood as Benito Mussolini. By the time you're 19, you've established yourself as a stubborn, headstrong outsider. Formal education has failed to tame your wild instincts, and village life now feels suffocating. Your family is worried your mother prays nightly for your redemption, while your father quietly admires your rebellious spirit. The local townsfolk shake their heads, calling you reckless, wild, and destined for trouble, but you don't care. You've outgrown the small confines of Pradapio, eager to explore the wider world. So one day you decide you've had enough and pack your bags, leaving behind the only home you've ever known. You travel to Switzerland, drawn by its reputation as a haven for political radicals, revolutionaries, and free thinkers. In your heart, you're desperate to discover your own path, one far from your parents' conflicts and the quiet judgment of your village neighbors. Your early days in Switzerland are harsh. You arrive penniless, hungry, and disoriented, wandering through foreign streets, struggling to find shelter and work. Jobs are scarce, and Swiss society isn't welcoming to young Italian drifters. You sleep in abandoned buildings, sharing spaces with other radicals and vagabonds, some dangerous, others idealistic. Many nights, you go to bed hungry, the bitter cold gnawing at your bones. Yet these hardships only harden your resolve. You believe suffering builds strength, endurance, and character. Eventually, you find odd jobs, working as a laborer on construction sites, cleaning factories, and even assisting tradesmen. The work is exhausting, dirty, and often humiliating. Bosses treat you like a disposable commodity, paying barely enough to survive. These experiences deepen your resentment toward the wealthy, the powerful, and the established classes. Injustice is everywhere, inequality blatant. You see the stark contrast between the privileged Swiss elite and the struggling foreign laborers. At the same time, you become increasingly involved with socialist circles in Switzerland. You attend gatherings in dimly lit taverns, basements, and secret meeting halls. Radical intellectuals, passionate labor organizers, and fiery revolutionaries gather to discuss politics, philosophy, and revolution. These meetings are your first real political education, far richer and more impactful than anything school offered. You eagerly soak up radical socialist ideas, reading extensively. Marx, Engels, Bakunin, you devour their words, drawing inspiration and conviction from their arguments. Soon, your powerful voice and natural charisma help you become a prominent figure in local socialist circles. People notice your intensity, confidence, and ability to stir emotions. When you speak, crowds pay attention, your words ignite their anger and passion. You're discovering your true power, your voice. Despite your growing influence, Swiss authorities become increasingly wary of your activities. You're constantly surveilled, arrested multiple times for inciting violence or disturbing the peace. Each time, you spend a few nights in jail, cold, damp, miserable cells. The conditions are brutal, but your spirit remains defiant. You see these imprisonments as badges of honor, proof you're fighting a noble cause. You emerge each time even more radicalized, more convinced of your purpose. Yet life in Switzerland continues to be precarious. Authorities eventually tire of your troublemaking, labeling you a dangerous agitator. You're forcibly expelled, deported back to Italy with nothing but the clothes on your back. But you refuse to be defeated. You return home, not in shame, but with renewed determination. Back in Italy, you're welcomed cautiously by your family, who fear what you've become. Yet your father, secretly proud, sees your struggle as heroic. He respects your courage, your willingness to suffer for your beliefs. In private, Alessandro encourages your radicalism, pushing you to continue fighting for justice. You take a teaching job in a small village school, hoping to lay low for a while, but you quickly find teaching stifling and frustrating. The students bore you, the bureaucracy annoys you, and conformity disgusts you. You're a revolutionary, not a school teacher. You start openly criticizing the education system, authority figures, and even local politicians. Predictably, you lose your job almost immediately. Realizing teaching isn't your calling, you shift your energies entirely into political agitation. You write for socialist newspapers, becoming known for your fiery confrontational style. Your articles attack capitalism, inequality, the monarchy, and the Catholic Church. Every institution that stands for tradition and authority. Readers either adore or despise you, but everyone knows your name. By now, your life has become nomadic. You're constantly traveling from city to city, Turin, Milan, Bologna, organizing socialist meetings, giving passionate speeches to thousands. You live hand to mouth, sleeping wherever there's a couch or a spare bed. Money is always scarce, your shoes are worn, your clothes ragged, but you thrive on this chaotic existence, believing struggle is necessary for revolution. Your reputation grows rapidly, and you become a prominent figure within Italy's Socialist Party. Young revolutionaries see you as a fearless leader, willing to say what others fear. Older, more moderate party members see you as reckless and dangerous. Divisions within the socialist movement begin to appear, but you refuse to compromise your principles. Then, World War I erupts and Europe descends into chaos. Italian socialists argue passionately about how to respond. Initially, you support neutrality, following socialist orthodoxy. War, you argue, only benefits the ruling classes and destroys the working class. But as the conflict intensifies, something inside you changes profoundly. You begin believing war can unify Italy, inspire nationalism, and forge a powerful identity. The Socialist Party, still passionately anti-war, sees your shift as betrayal. You argue publicly for intervention, urging Italians to join the war effort. Your speeches enrage former allies who feel you've abandoned core socialist principles. Eventually, the Socialist Party expels you, branding you a traitor. Former comrades openly call for your downfall, denouncing you bitterly. Once again, you're isolated, a political outcast. Yet you feel liberated, finally free from party orthodoxy. Determined to follow your own path, you enlist in the Italian army, eager to prove your newfound nationalist beliefs on the battlefield. War, you feel, will transform Italy and yourself, turning men into heroes and nations into legends. You're confident, idealistic, and fearless as you march toward the trenches. But war isn't glorious. Soon, you find yourself knee-deep in mud, surrounded by death and destruction. Your romantic ideals quickly evaporate amid brutal fighting, freezing winters, starvation, and constant bombardment. Friends die brutally around you, screaming for mothers they'll never see again. You're wounded badly in battle, shrapnel tearing into your body, leaving lasting scars. The brutality shakes you deeply, reshaping your ideas about strength, leadership, and sacrifice. Discharged due to your injuries, you return home physically battered, psychologically scarred, but more determined than ever. You've seen firsthand the power war holds in shaping nations. Italy is struggling, suffering from economic chaos, strikes, and bitter divisions. You see an opportunity to unite your fragmented country under powerful leadership. At 35 years old, hardened by war and political battles, you found a new political movement: fascism. Born from nationalism, strength, unity, and discipline, an ideology shaped by your life's struggles. Italians, desperate for stability, rally around your promise of restoring greatness. Your rise begins now. With each passing day, your power and influence grow, your ambition insatiable. You promise Italy glory, strength, and order. Yet lurking beneath these ideals lies danger, oppression, and violence. This was your political awakening as Benito Mussolini. Returning from war, you find your homeland broken. The Italy you fought for is consumed by chaos, economic collapse, mass unemployment, social unrest, and bitter political division. Workers strike constantly, factories close, and the government seems powerless. Italians are exhausted, angry, and desperate for someone to restore order. You sense an opportunity. Drawing from your experiences, both as a passionate socialist and as a nationalist hardened by war, you create a new political ideology: fascism. Your vision promises a strong Italy, united and disciplined under decisive leadership. You advocate order, authority, and the revival of Italy's former glory. To spread your new ideology, you start a newspaper, Il Popolo d'Italia. Your fiery writing style and bold propaganda capture the people's imagination. They resonate deeply with the masses, desperate for stability. Your newspaper becomes a megaphone, amplifying your voice nationwide. Soon, you gather followers, disgruntled war veterans, frustrated workers, and ambitious youths eager for purpose. They form the core of your growing political political movement. You establish paramilitary squads known as the Blackshirts, named after their black uniforms symbolizing discipline and unity. These squads intimidate opponents, violently suppress strikes, and silence critics. Your Blackshirts storm towns and villages, crushing socialist groups and opposition parties. Violence becomes your tool, fear your currency. Yet many Italians quietly approve, seeing your actions as necessary to restore order. The government, weak and ineffective, does little to stop you. You tour Italy, delivering impassioned speeches to massive crowds. You promise greatness, unity, and prosperity. Your charisma is magnetic, your words electrifying. Italians cheer your vision, believing you alone can rescue their suffering nation. By 1922, your fascist party has grown powerful. You orchestrate the infamous March on Rome, sending tens of thousands of Blackshirts marching toward the capital demanding control. The existing government panics, fearful of civil war. King Victor Emmanuel III, desperate to avoid bloodshed, surrenders to your demands. You're appointed prime minister at just 39. Immediately, you seize total control. Democracy fades as you dismantle parliament, outlaw opposition, and silence the press. Italy becomes a one-party state under your absolute authority. Opponents are imprisoned or exiled, dissent brutally suppressed. Your grip tightens, solidifying your power. Yet ruling proves harder than you anticipated. Behind your facade of invincibility, paranoia grows. You trust no one, suspecting plots everywhere. Friends, allies, and family are potential threats. Sleepless nights become normal as fear gnaws at your mind. Your obsession with image intensifies. You meticulously stage public appearances, carefully crafting a persona of strength and decisiveness. Your speeches thunder with confidence, your posture perfect. Behind the scenes, however, you obsess endlessly over criticism, terrified of weakness or humiliation. Internationally, you forge alliances cautiously. Germany's Adolf Hitler admires your regime, seeking partnership. Initially flattered, you soon realize Hitler is unpredictable, ambitious, and dangerous. But you have little choice. Italy alone is vulnerable. Reluctantly, you form an alliance that later drags Italy into catastrophe. Under your rule, Italy modernizes rapidly. Infrastructure improves, new roads, buildings, and industries arise. Employment increases, and national pride swells. Yet beneath this facade lies brutality, censorship, and oppression. Italians live in fear, their freedoms crushed under your iron fist. As the 1930s progress, your ambitions soar higher. You dream of empire, seeking to restore Rome's ancient greatness. You invade Ethiopia in 1935, using brutal tactics and chemical weapons. International condemnation follows, but you ignore criticism, convinced of your destiny. Your ego inflates dangerously. You begin believing yourself invincible, ignoring advice and warnings. Critics disappear silently, replaced by sycophants who feed your vanity. Reality becomes distorted, truth blurred by propaganda. Your isolation deepens as advisors fear telling uncomfortable truths. Then World War II erupts. Initially hesitant, you join Hitler's war, confident in swift victory. Instead, Italy faces disaster. Your ill-prepared armies suffer humiliating defeats. Public support wanes rapidly as bombings devastate cities and food shortages worsen. Your carefully constructed image begins crumbling. By 1943, Italy is collapsing. Allies invade from the south, and disillusioned, Italians turn against you. Even trusted generals plot betrayal. You're arrested, imprisoned, and humiliated. Overnight, you fall from absolute ruler to broken prisoner. Yet the drama isn't finished. Hitler rescues you, installing you as a puppet leader in northern Italy. But you're now powerless, a mere shadow controlled by Germany. Each day brings deeper humiliation as your country suffers. In April 1945, Allied forces close in. Desperate, you attempt fleeing to safety but are captured by partisans, former subjects you've oppressed. Justice is swift and brutal. You're executed mercilessly, your body displayed publicly as a grim warning. Your life, once filled with power, ambition, and pride, ends in disgrace and tragedy. Your legacy is haunting, a testament to unchecked ambition, authoritarian cruelty, and devastating failure. This was your rise to power as Benito Mussolini. At the height of your rule, Italy stands in awe of your power. Your face gazes from every wall, statue, and poster across the nation. Your voice reverberates through every street, carried by radios, loudspeakers, and mass rallies. To millions, you are no longer just Benito Mussolini, you are El Duce, the embodiment of Italy itself, strong and invincible. Yet beneath the facade, hidden anxieties fester. You've created an Italy where opposition no longer exists, or so it seems. Your fascist party is supreme, with all others outlawed. Parliament, once a place of debate, now merely echoes your decrees. You dominate education, ensuring children learn your doctrine from the earliest age. Young boys join youth groups where they're taught discipline, loyalty, and obedience to you alone. Girls learn that their highest calling is motherhood, producing the soldiers of tomorrow. You delight in staging immense public spectacles designed to reinforce your authority. Rome regularly fills with thousands of uniformed black shirts, their synchronized salutes echoing through the grand plazas. Parades showcase your growing military might, tanks rolling past cheering citizens, waving Italian flags, and portraits of you. Propaganda films depict you heroically leading Italy toward its glorious destiny. You revel in these moments, feeling validated, invincible, even immortal. Yet despite your power, peace of mind remains elusive. Paranoia grows within you. Every shadow becomes a potential assassin, every whispered conversation a conspiracy. Trusted advisors find themselves under suspicion for the slightest perceived betrayal. Your security tightens and your circle shrinks. Friends fade, replaced by sycophants who shower you with praise but offer no genuine loyalty. Isolation creeps in, tightening around you like a noose. Economically, cracks are widening beneath the polished surface. Your aggressive policies, designed for rapid industrialization and agricultural self-sufficiency, begin to falter. Initially, Italians celebrated the expansion of factories, roads, and railways, but reality soon exposes the flaws. Resources are scarce, corruption rampant, and bureaucracy bloated. The cost of maintaining your military ambitions drains funds needed elsewhere. Soon, ordinary citizens feel the squeeze of rising prices and shortages. On the international stage, your arrogance leads to reckless choices. Obsessed with restoring Roman greatness, you embark on aggressive military campaigns, beginning with Ethiopia in 1935. The invasion succeeds swiftly, but your forces resort to horrific tactics, including chemical warfare. The global community reacts with outrage. Sanctions follow, but you brush aside criticism, intoxicated by triumph. Meanwhile, your alliance with Adolf Hitler deepens. Initially, you see him as a useful ally, perhaps even a junior partner, admiring how Germany rebuilt itself after World War I. But increasingly, the relationship tilts, with Hitler dictating terms. You find yourself drawn into his ambitions, constrained by the pact you've made. In 1939, Germany invades Poland, igniting World War II. Initially, you hesitate, realizing Italy isn't prepared for war, but pressure mounts, pride takes hold, and in June 1940, you impulsively declare war, confident in quick victory alongside Germany. Crowds initially cheer your decision, swayed by propaganda and dreams of empire, but optimism quickly fades as reality sets in. Your military proves disastrously unprepared. Troops lack proper equipment, training, and leadership. Early campaigns in North Africa expose Italy's vulnerabilities. British forces rout your troops repeatedly, forcing humiliating retreats. Italy's navy, essential for Mediterranean dominance, suffers significant defeats at sea, severely damaging morale. News of setbacks reaches home, eroding your carefully maintained image of invincibility. In October 1940, you impulsively invade Greece, confident of swift conquest. Instead, it becomes one of your greatest humiliations. Greek resistance proves fierce, inflicting heavy casualties. Your soldiers falter in freezing conditions, lacking supplies and support. You reluctantly beg Hitler for assistance, further diminishing your reputation. German intervention rescues your army, but at the cost of Italy's dignity and independence. As the war drags on, public support wanes. Families receive endless notices of loved ones lost or captured. Bombs rain down on Italian cities, destroying homes and livelihoods. Food shortages worsen, rationing tightens, and suffering grows widespread. Italians now openly question your decisions, blaming your arrogance for their misery. Yet you stubbornly ignore reality, refusing to accept responsibility. Propaganda becomes desperate, emphasizing imaginary victories. Truth is censored, critics silenced. Fear permeates Italy as citizens whisper their complaints, fearful of arrest or worse. You cling desperately to power, unwilling to see your dream collapsing around you. By 1943, Italy teeters on collapse. Allied forces land in Sicily, swiftly capturing territory. Your military leaders lose faith, believing defeat inevitable. Even your closest allies begin begin plotting your removal, hoping to save Italy from total ruin. You sense betrayal but remain powerless to stop it. In July 1943, your fascist Grand Council meets in secrecy, casting a vote of no confidence. You're stunned by their betrayal. Within hours, King Victor Emmanuel III summons you, stripping you of power and placing you under arrest. Your rapid fall shocks even your staunchest supporters. Imprisoned, humiliated, and alone, you face a reality you never imagined possible. But your story isn't finished yet. Hitler intervenes dramatically, ordering German commandos to rescue you from captivity. Freed, but now entirely dependent on Hitler's whims, you're installed as the puppet leader of a German-controlled state in northern Italy. Your power is gone, your dignity shattered. You spend your days isolated, painfully aware of your irrelevance. In your final months, your world crumbles further. Resistance fighters rise against your regime, violently targeting your remaining loyalists. Germany's fortunes decline rapidly, and you know defeat is imminent. Paranoia consumes you entirely as you shuffle between hideouts, always fearful of capture or assassination. Sleepless nights torment you, haunted by memories of past glory and current humiliation. In April 1945, Allied forces advance relentlessly, forcing you into desperate flight toward the Swiss border. Captured by Italian partisans, former subjects you've oppressed, justice arrives swiftly and mercilessly. Without trial, you're executed alongside your mistress, Clara Petacci. Your bodies are publicly displayed in Milan, a grim spectacle symbolizing the bitter end of your regime. Your life, once defined by ambition, charisma, and ruthless power, concludes in disgrace. Your nation lies in ruins, scarred by your rule. History remembers you as a warning, a powerful symbol of ambition corrupted by ego and brutality, a cautionary tale of absolute power's tragic consequences. This was your peak of power and the beginning of your downfall as Benito Mussolini. The end approaches rapidly, and deep down, you know it. The country you once controlled absolutely is now tearing itself apart, engulfed in chaos and civil strife. You're no longer the all-powerful Il Duce, but a shadow, hiding in small towns and remote hideouts, fearful and haunted by the failures you've accumulated. Your dreams of a powerful, respected Italy are now ashes scattered by war, defeat, and humiliation. In the northern regions, you rule only in name. German forces control every aspect of governance, leaving you powerless, little more than Hitler's puppet. You watch helplessly as your country suffers brutal occupation, mass deportations, and widespread resistance. The reality of your situation eats away at your mind. You're neither in command nor capable of changing Italy's grim fate. Yet you stubbornly cling to illusions, issuing desperate propaganda broadcasts urging Italians to fight to the bitter end. But your words fall on deaf ears. The public long ago lost faith in your promises. Families mourn countless deaths and starve through food shortages. Villages lie in ruins from relentless Allied bombing. All blame points squarely at you, yet you refuse to fully acknowledge your responsibility. Your inner circle rapidly shrinks, now consisting mainly of die-hard loyalists clinging to fading ideals or opportunists seeking to exploit your diminished power. Trust erodes completely. Conversations become short and paranoid, each interaction filled with unspoken suspicion. You're haunted by the knowledge that even your closest advisors plot against you, secretly negotiating with enemies or planning their escapes. By early 1945, the Allies advance relentlessly, liberating city after city, steadily moving northward. Resistance fighters rise boldly, emboldened by Allied successes. Attacks against your regime intensify, and the region erupts in chaos. You're forced to change locations constantly, staying one step ahead of capture. Life is reduced to a bleak existence of hiding, paranoia, and growing despair. In April 1945, news arrives that Allied forces are nearing Milan. You understand clearly what this means. The final collapse is imminent. You desperately plan your escape, aiming for the safety of neutral Switzerland. Gathering what remains of your possessions and accompanied by a handful of followers, including Clara Petacci, your devoted mistress, you head northward, hoping to slip quietly over the border. The journey is tense and exhausting. Roads overflow with refugees fleeing advancing armies, panic spreading like wildfire. You disguise yourself poorly, trying desperately to avoid recognition, yet fearful eyes still follow your every move. News spreads rapidly. Mussolini is fleeing. Allies and resistance fighters intensify their pursuit, determined to bring you to justice. On April 27, 1945, you and your small convoy are halted by partisan forces near the village of Dongo. Their recognition is immediate. Terrified, yet attempting bravado, you try negotiating. Promises, threats, and pleas tumble out chaotically. The partisans remain unmoved. You're arrested and detained, your heart sinking with dread. You finally run out of options. The next day, the decision is swift and final: execution. There's no trial, no opportunity for defense. You're transported to a quiet village nearby and lined up against a stone wall. The cold muzzle of a gun presses against your chest. You close your eyes, briefly reflecting on your life, ambition, pride, violence, power, tragedy. A sudden burst, sharp and loud, and darkness overtakes you instantly. Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, is no more. Your body, alongside Clara Petacci's and several loyalists, is transported to Milan. Displayed publicly in Piazzale Loreto, the very site where you'd once executed anti-fascist partisans, your corpse is hung upside down from a steel beam. Crowds gather, jeering, spitting, and hurling objects. Your body is beaten and mutilated, an outlet for years of suppressed rage. Photographs of the scene spread globally, forever etching your end into history's memory as a stark, brutal warning. But your death isn't the end of your legacy. Italy, scarred and divided by your rule, struggles for decades to heal. Your ideology, fascism, remains synonymous with brutality, oppression, and catastrophic ambition. For generations, Italians grapple with collective shame, pain, and memories of those lost under your regime. Your name, once worshipped, becomes reviled, a reminder of humanity's darkest potential. Yet even in death, controversy surrounds you. Supporters quietly mourn your demise, maintaining devotion to your ideals. Neo-fascist groups emerge over time, romanticizing your rule, attempting to rewrite history. Your gravesite in Prodapio becomes a pilgrimage destination for die-hard loyalists, creating ongoing tensions within Italian society. Historians fiercely debate your life and impact. Some recognize your early successes, modernization, infrastructure projects, initial economic improvements. Others emphasize your brutality, oppression, reckless militarism, and ultimately disastrous alliance with Hitler. Scholarly arguments continue endlessly, dissecting your complex legacy, forever trying to fully comprehend the contradictions of Benito Mussolini. Your life, from humble beginnings in Prodapio to ruthless dictator ruling over millions, is a profound study of ambition, pride, arrogance, and devastating failure. The story of your rise and fall serves as a potent cautionary tale, illustrating the dangers inherent in unchecked power, extreme nationalism, and charismatic demagoguery. Italy, though deeply wounded, slowly rebuilds. Democracy returns, freedoms are restored, and healing gradually begins. Yet your shadow looms, an ever-present reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty, authoritarianism, and self-destruction. In the end, Benito Mussolini is remembered as both architect and destroyer, one who shaped history profoundly, yet left behind pain, division, and bitter lessons never forgotten. Your life and death teach the world harsh truths about the price of absolute power and the devastating consequences when nations surrender blindly to charismatic leaders. This was your tragic legacy as Benito Mussolini. Yet troublingly, your ideals persist in hidden corners. Neo-fascist groups emerge, driven by nostalgia for your supposed strength and order. Small pockets of supporters continue revering your memory, attempting to sanitize your history and deny the brutal realities of your rule. Periodically, these groups gain brief political traction, reminding society of democracy's fragility and the importance of vigilance. Your birthplace, Prodapio, becomes a complex site of pilgrimage. Some visit to understand history, confronting the realities of your regime's cruelty. Others arrive to pay tribute, unsettling reminders that your ideology still holds allure for a troubling minority. The debate around your birthplace symbolizes Italy's ongoing struggle with your complicated legacy. Your family suffers profoundly after your death. Clara Petacci, executed alongside you, becomes a tragic footnote in history. Your children live forever burdened by their father's crimes, carrying shame and stigma. Generations of Mussolinis grapple with your shadow, trying desperately to separate themselves from your deeds while coping with society's judgment. Your political philosophy, fascism, remains forever linked with authoritarian brutality and human suffering. Globally, fascism symbolizes oppression, fear, and the suppression of individual liberties. Your actions help ensure that societies worldwide instinctively recoil from the idea of dictatorship, reinforcing democratic values and underscoring the necessity of human rights. Art and literature reflect endlessly on your rule, capturing the complexities and contradictions of your character. Films, novels, and historical accounts dissect your rise and fall meticulously, helping future generations comprehend the dangerous allure of charismatic leadership and the devastating consequences of nationalism unchecked by compassion or morality. Your death isn't the end. The reverberations of your regime and its violent collapse continue to ripple across the globe, leaving scars and lessons that echo loudly through history. In death, you're transformed from a powerful ruler into a symbol of tyranny, ambition, tragedy, and the devastating costs of unchecked power. In the immediate aftermath, Italy struggles to rebuild from the ruins left by your regime. The war has devastated the economy, destroyed infrastructure, and torn families apart. Italians face years of poverty, hunger, and bitterness. Millions grapple with the trauma of lost loved ones, shattered lives, and profound shame. Your memory is not celebrated, it's a burden. Yet, even as Italy tries to forget, the world remembers vividly. Your alliance with Hitler, sealed in violence and shared ambition, helped plunge Europe into its darkest years. World War II cost tens of millions of lives, and your reckless decisions played a crucial role in fueling that catastrophic conflict. Historians dissect your actions relentlessly, examining how a charismatic leader like you could so effectively manipulate an entire nation. Internationally, your legacy shapes politics profoundly. The world emerges from the devastation of war, determined never to allow another dictator like you to rise again. Institutions like the United Nations form explicitly to prevent tyranny and promote human rights. Democracies worldwide strengthen safeguards, determined to ensure freedoms cannot again be dismantled so swiftly and ruthlessly. Philosophers, historians, and political scientists study your regime intensely, analyzing how you gained and maintained power through propaganda, violence, and manipulation. Your methods, controlling media, suppressing dissent, promoting ultranationalism, become textbook examples of totalitarianism. Students worldwide learn your story not as one of triumph, but as a chilling warning of power's dangers. Italy itself engages in profound self-reflection after your death. Debates rage over collective guilt, responsibility, and complicity in fascism's rise. Citizens wrestle with difficult truths, confronting painful memories of collaboration and apathy. Slowly, Italian society evolves, recommitting itself to democracy, openness, and pluralism, determined never to repeat your devastating path. In schools worldwide, students learn your name as a stark lesson in history. Educators emphasize vigilance against authoritarian tendencies, teaching critical thinking, democratic values, and the importance of resisting demagoguery. Your life serves as a powerful educational tool, demonstrating precisely what happens when societies abandon reason and humanity in favor of blind devotion and fear-based governance. Perhaps the most enduring legacy you leave behind is caution. The world has witnessed, through your life, how ambition can become destructive when unchecked, how charismatic leaders can manipulate societies into catastrophe, and how easily freedoms are lost when citizens remain apathetic or complacent. Your story compels humanity to remain alert, informed, and engaged, eternally vigilant against the resurgence of oppressive ideologies. Ultimately, Benito Mussolini, your impact is complex, contradictory, and deeply troubling. You're remembered not as a hero, but as a cautionary tale, an eternal reminder of humanity's potential for darkness. Your life's lessons resonate across generations, reinforcing the critical importance of democracy, human rights, compassion, and education. This was your profound historical impact and the enduring lessons learned from your life as Benito Mussolini. Decades after your death, your name still evokes powerful emotions. You remain a divisive, controversial figure whose life continues to provoke reflection, debate, and introspection around the world. Your shadow lingers not merely as a historical footnote, but as a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty, authoritarianism, and self-deception. In modern Italy, your legacy remains a source of discomfort. Many citizens prefer forgetting, focusing on Italy's vibrant culture, democratic traditions, and rich heritage that existed before and after your rule. Yet you're impossible to erase entirely. Statues, monuments, and symbols from your regime still dot the country, often quietly removed or recontextualized to educate rather than glorify. Pradapio, your birthplace, remains a contentious landmark visited by historians, tourists, and neo-fascists alike, reflecting Italy's ongoing struggle with your legacy. Politically, your ideology still surfaces periodically, stirring controversy and fear. Occasionally, fringe groups emerge, seeking power by exploiting economic anxieties, nationalism, and populist rhetoric reminiscent of your rise. Politicians worldwide reference your example to warn citizens about the dangers of authoritarian leadership, propaganda, and the erosion of democratic institutions. Your story provides endless lessons about vigilance, caution, and protecting freedoms. Educational institutions around the globe dissect your rise meticulously, teaching students the importance of democracy, critical thinking, and resisting demagoguery. Your life's cautionary cautionary tale underscores precisely what occurs when power concentrates unchecked in one individual's hands. Educators use your history to remind younger generations that democracy requires active, engaged citizens committed to protecting liberties and resisting oppression. Your relationship with Hitler, in particular, remains a powerful historical warning. Scholars examine your alliance repeatedly, illustrating the dangers of political expediency, unchecked nationalism, and moral compromise. Your example demonstrates clearly how leaders who sacrifice values for temporary gains ultimately suffer catastrophic consequences. Historians emphasize your partnership's devastating outcomes, hoping future leaders learn to prioritize moral integrity over short-term political ambition. In popular culture, your life continues inspiring movies, documentaries, novels, and artistic reflections. Some depict you as a monstrous tyrant, others as a tragic figure undone by ambition and pride. These portrayals further complicate your legacy, ensuring public fascination remains alive. Yet overwhelmingly, these reflections carry a sobering message: absolute power corrupts absolutely, destroying individuals, families, and entire nations. Psychologists and sociologists also analyze your behavior intensely. Studies explore how your personality traits, narcissism, insecurity, paranoia, contributed to your authoritarian rule. Researchers discuss how your charisma manipulated millions, underscoring human vulnerability to persuasive leadership, especially during periods of crisis. Your psychological profile helps society understand the dangerous appeal charismatic dictators possess, further emphasizing the need for skepticism, education, and critical thought. Italy's recovery and modern democratic identity remain deeply influenced by your brutal regime. The country embraces democracy, pluralism, and tolerance, explicitly rejecting fascism's oppressive values. Your atrocities and Italy's subsequent collective guilt compel Italian society toward human rights advocacy, democratic education, and vigilance against political extremism. Your regime's harsh memories continually reinforce Italy's commitment to protecting freedoms and human dignity. Globally, your legacy manifests in numerous human rights institutions formed explicitly to prevent future dictatorships. International organizations regularly cite your rule as justification for strengthening democratic institutions, protecting freedom of speech, and combating propaganda. Your life provides compelling arguments supporting international cooperation, global accountability, and universal respect for human dignity. In recent years, increased global populism has reignited debates about your historical significance. Political analysts regularly draw parallels between contemporary populist leaders and your rise, emphasizing similar tactics: ultranationalism, propaganda, scapegoating minorities, and undermining democratic institutions. Discussions about your regime remind citizens worldwide of democracy's fragility and the necessity of civic engagement, vigilance, and political accountability. Even your personal descendants grapple continually with your complicated legacy. Family members publicly renounce your actions, distancing themselves from your crimes while advocating democratic values, peace, and tolerance. Your descendants endure societal stigma and scrutiny, constantly forced to define themselves separately from your horrific legacy. Their experiences symbolize the lingering pain and shame authoritarian rulers inflict upon future generations. Your regime's victims, those persecuted, exiled, imprisoned, or executed, are commemorated through memorials, museums, and educational programs worldwide. These efforts honor victims' memories while reinforcing societal determination never to allow similar atrocities. Your actions, studied carefully, help foster empathy, compassion, and global solidarity against oppression. Ultimately, Benito Mussolini, your modern legacy, remains profoundly complex and troubling. You're remembered not for greatness, but as a vivid cautionary tale about humanity's darkest potential. Your life compels continuous reflection, vigilance, and dedication to protecting democratic values, human rights, and moral integrity. While your rule brought immense suffering, your legacy drives societies toward greater empathy, critical thinking, and democratic resilience. Long after your regime ended, the world remains fascinated and deeply unsettled by your story. Modern leaders and movements frequently draw comparisons to your rise and fall, serving as warnings about the persistent dangers of authoritarianism, nationalism, and unchecked ambition. Your life, it turns out, is more relevant now than ever. In contemporary politics, the echoes of your tactics reverberate. Political scientists often reference your approach to governance, propaganda, suppression of the press, cultivating a cult of personality as benchmarks of authoritarianism. Modern populist leaders worldwide have been compared to you, accused of employing similar strategies to consolidate power, stifle dissent, and erode democratic institutions. The world continually watches, wary of repeating your history. Politicians and activists frequently invoke your name to caution against nationalist rhetoric that divides societies, promotes xenophobia and fuels hatred. Your use of ultranationalism to justify oppression, military aggression, and racial superiority serves as a chilling historical reminder. Contemporary debates around immigration, multiculturalism, and national identity often draw parallels to your regime, highlighting the urgent need for tolerance and inclusive democracy. The global rise of misinformation and propaganda, amplified by modern technologies, makes your story particularly relevant. Your regime expertly manipulated information, controlling narratives to maintain power. Today, misinformation spreads rapidly online, polarizing societies, undermining trust, and destabilizing democracies worldwide. Historians and media scholars repeatedly reference your regime as a warning about propaganda's dangers, underscoring the necessity for media literacy, fact-based journalism, and critical thinking. Your alliance with Hitler remains a powerful cautionary example for contemporary international politics. Scholars warn modern leaders about forming morally compromised alliances for short-term gains, pointing explicitly to your disastrous partnership with Germany. Your story illustrates starkly how compromising moral integrity for political convenience often leads nations into catastrophe, emphasizing the importance of principled foreign policy decisions. In education, your life is continuously examined as a textbook case of authoritarianism's psychological dynamics. Schools worldwide teach students to identify authoritarian characteristics, propaganda use, suppression of criticism, cults of personality through detailed studies of your regime. Educators emphasize your story as critical evidence, demonstrating how easily democracies can deteriorate into dictatorships without active, informed, and engaged citizenry. Your economic policies also hold contemporary relevance. While initially successful in infrastructure projects and employment, your regime ultimately collapsed under corruption, inefficiency, and aggressive militarism. Modern economists and policy analysts reference your economic failures when discussing the dangers of centralized control, excessive militarization, and reckless spending. Your economic legacy highlights the necessity of transparency, accountability, and responsible fiscal governance. Contemporary cultural discussions frequently reference your manipulation of arts and media to reinforce authoritarian control. Today, governments attempting to suppress creative expression face immediate comparisons to your regime. Artists and journalists worldwide invoke your example to highlight the importance of artistic freedom, journalistic integrity, and protecting diverse voices from authoritarian censorship. Human rights organizations constantly invoke your legacy when addressing contemporary authoritarian abuses worldwide. Global awareness about oppression, censorship, political imprisonment, and propaganda often explicitly references your regime as an illustrative example of authoritarianism's cruelty. Activists fighting contemporary authoritarian regimes cite your life and actions to illustrate oppression's consequences, mobilizing global empathy and activism. Pop culture continues revisiting your life, often as cautionary tales in movies, literature, and theater. Contemporary works frequently parallel modern political figures to your story, encouraging audiences to critically examine today's leaders and movements. These portrayals maintain public awareness about the dangers of charismatic leadership, extreme nationalism, and unchecked power. Environmental activists also reference your regime when highlighting dangers of prioritizing aggressive industrialization and militarization over environmental responsibility. Your disregard for sustainable resource use, environmental protection, and long-term ecological health remains a powerful historical example cited by modern environmentalists advocating responsible stewardship. Psychologists continually study your personality traits, narcissism, paranoia, insecurity to analyze authoritarian leaders' behaviors worldwide. Your psychological profile helps explain why individuals become authoritarian rulers, manipulating populations through charisma, fear, and division. Modern psychological research frequently uses your example to highlight authoritarian leaders' characteristics, assisting societies in identifying and preventing authoritarian tendencies. Your rule's societal impact remains relevant as contemporary societies struggle with collective guilt, responsibility, and reconciliation after authoritarian regimes. Nations transitioning from oppressive governments reference Italy's recovery from your regime when designing reconciliation processes, educational programs, and democratic rebuilding efforts. Your legacy assists global efforts toward healing, rebuilding democratic institutions, and fostering reconciliation. Your rise and fall holds significant contemporary relevance in understanding populist movements. Political analysts repeatedly reference your story to highlight populism's appeal, tactics, and dangers, emphasizing the critical importance of responsible governance, institutional checks, and democratic resilience. Your history remains a vital educational tool, warning societies about populism's seductive promises, manipulation techniques, and destructive outcomes. Ultimately, your legacy continues provoking intense reflection worldwide, underscoring humanity's potential for both cruelty and compassion, oppression and freedom. Your life's persistent relevance demonstrates history's enduring lessons and modern society's responsibility in protecting democratic values, human rights, and moral integrity. Benito Mussolini, your story remains a crucial, timeless cautionary tale, a stark reminder of authoritarianism's dangers, democracy's fragility, and citizens' essential role in preserving freedom. At the core of your rise and fall lies a complex human story, one filled with contradictions, internal struggles, and psychological complexities that continue to fascinate scholars. Examining your personality provides deep insights into the mindset of authoritarian leaders, the allure of power, and the human capacity for both greatness and darkness. From your earliest years, your life was defined by conflict. Born to parents who clashed deeply, your father's radical socialism and your mother's conservative religious beliefs, you learned early to navigate contradictory worlds. This internal tension profoundly shaped your character, making you simultaneously rebellious and obedient, charismatic yet deeply insecure. Your childhood struggles profoundly impacted your adult behavior. Growing up in poverty, you developed an intense desire for power, respect, and validation. You sought admiration desperately, craving the attention and applause denied in your youth. Psychologists studying your life describe your relentless drive for dominance as a compensatory mechanism, a desperate attempt to fill emotional voids left by early neglect, rejection, and instability. Your repeated expulsions from school and difficulties maintaining stable employment reflect deeper psychological patterns. Your behavior consistently demonstrated defiance against authority figures, possibly rooted in deep-seated resentment toward your father's harsh discipline or rejection by peers. Each rebellious act, psychologists suggest, represented an attempt to reclaim control over your chaotic internal world and external circumstances. As you transitioned into adulthood, your psychological complexity intensified. Your charisma, a critical tool enabling your rise, stemmed from a profound understanding of people's vulnerabilities and desires. You masterfully manipulated emotions, offering hope, stability, and identity to a society struggling with economic collapse and social disorder. Your ability to exploit fear, anger, and desperation reveals disturbing psychological insight and deep emotional intelligence, traits common among authoritarian leaders. Your obsession with appearance and public image indicates profound insecurity. Meticulously crafted public displays, carefully posed photographs, and tightly controlled propaganda masked intense feelings of inadequacy and vulnerability. Historians and psychologists observe that your constant need for public approval and validation served as protection against profound inner emptiness and self-doubt. The extravagant pageantry of your regime served not only political but deeply personal psychological purposes. Your increasing paranoia as your power grew offers critical insights into authoritarian leaders' psychological deterioration. Trusting no one, suspecting betrayal constantly, and obsessively surveilling subordinates are classic symptoms of paranoia and narcissism. Experts suggest your isolation amplified your anxiety, causing deteriorating judgment and increasingly reckless decisions. Your descent into paranoia underscores the psychological dangers inherent in absolute power, isolation, and constant fear. Your relationships, both personal and political, were complex and deeply troubled. Your marriage, marked by infidelity, emotional distance, and neglect, reflects deep-seated emotional issues and inability to form genuine emotional bonds. Your long-term affair with Clara Petacci, a relationship filled with emotional dependency and intense possessiveness, reveals significant psychological vulnerability. Experts interpret these dynamics as desperate attempts to find emotional intimacy and validation absent from your early life, further illustrating your profound insecurities. Your relationship with Adolf Hitler offers additional psychological insight. Initially viewing Hitler as a junior partner, you became increasingly subordinate, manipulated by his more dominant personality. Psychologists analyze this dynamic as reflective of your deep-seated insecurity, your eagerness for approval from powerful figures overriding judgment, self-respect, and rational decision-making. Your disastrous alliance demonstrates clearly how your insecurities ultimately undermined your leadership abilities and contributed significantly to Italy's downfall. Your regime's violence and brutal suppression of dissent reflect troubling psychological characteristics, including cruelty, indifference to suffering, and a profound lack of empathy. Historians document your personal authorization of imprisonments, executions, and brutal punishments, indicating emotional detachment and moral disengagement. Psychologists consider your behavior indicative of narcissistic and antisocial tendencies common among authoritarian leaders, traits enabling extreme cruelty and oppression. Yet your story is also marked by human tragedy. Your ambitions, initially rooted in genuine desire to improve Italy, became twisted by power, ego, and emotional dysfunction. Your increasingly reckless decisions, driven by insecurity and paranoia, resulted in catastrophic consequences for millions. The profound tragedy of your life lies not merely in your brutality, but in the wasted potential. The intelligence, charisma, and leadership abilities squandered by unchecked ambition and psychological vulnerabilities. Your psychological complexities serve as crucial educational tools, helping societies understand authoritarianism's human dimensions. Educators, historians, and psychologists study your life extensively, teaching citizens to recognize dangerous leadership traits, charisma masking insecurity, ambition distorted by ego, intelligence undermined by paranoia. Your story emphasizes the importance of psychological awareness, emotional intelligence, and empathy in effective, responsible leadership. Modern psychological research utilizes your life extensively, analyzing authoritarian leaders' psychological patterns worldwide. Your personality profile, marked by charisma, ambition, narcissism, paranoia, and profound emotional insecurity, helps experts identify authoritarian characteristics, assisting societies in preventing dictatorships. Your psychological insights underscore the importance of mental health awareness, emotional intelligence, and critical reflection in leadership roles. Ultimately, Benito Mussolini, your life's profound psychological insights compel continuous reflection worldwide, emphasizing humanity's potential for both greatness and darkness. Your story illustrates vividly how unchecked psychological dysfunction, rooted in insecurity, ambition, paranoia, and lack of empathy, can devastate entire nations. Your life serves as a critical reminder of leadership's psychological responsibilities and the importance of compassion, humility, and moral integrity. Your journey from a humble child in Pradapio to the feared dictator known worldwide as Il Duce captures humanity's most powerful and troubling truths. The life you led, filled with triumph and tragedy, ambition and downfall, power and humiliation, offers enduring lessons for all generations, serving as a cautionary tale that remains deeply relevant today. In the end, your legacy is not about glory or triumph. It's about the catastrophic consequences that arise when power is allowed to dominate reason, compassion, and morality. Your life demonstrates vividly how unchecked ambition, coupled with insecurity and ruthless ego, can plunge entire nations into darkness. It's a stark reminder of democracy's fragility and the vital role each citizen plays in protecting freedom. Your story also highlights the critical responsibility of leadership. True leaders serve their people, prioritizing compassion, wisdom, and humility over ego, pride, and personal gain. Your disastrous reign underscores the immense dangers inherent when leaders sacrifice morality for political expediency, choose arrogance over empathy, and suppress truth to maintain power. Your rise and fall illuminate the seductive nature of power itself. Initially driven by genuine beliefs, your ideals rapidly eroded under absolute authority's corrupting influence. History repeatedly demonstrates how power, when concentrated excessively, inevitably leads to corruption, cruelty, and oppression. Your life offers a profound warning: power without accountability inevitably leads to tragedy. Societies worldwide study your regime to understand authoritarianism's mechanics, examining how charismatic leaders exploit fear, anger, and desperation to seize control. Your story reveals the essential role propaganda, censorship, and misinformation play in authoritarian rule, emphasizing the critical importance of independent media, free speech, and educated citizenry in protecting democracy. The consequences of your decisions, violence, suppression, war, demonstrate vividly how easily societies fracture under authoritarian governance. Your life serves as a powerful educational tool, teaching students worldwide to recognize and resist authoritarian characteristics. Your regime provides clear evidence of what happens when democratic safeguards collapse, underscoring the necessity of civic engagement, vigilance, and collective responsibility in maintaining democratic institutions. Your catastrophic alliance with Adolf Hitler remains particularly instructive. Historians and politicians continually reference your tragic partnership, highlighting the dangers of political opportunism, moral compromise, and unchecked nationalism. Your story emphasizes that principled decision-making and moral integrity must guide international relationships, safeguarding nations from devastating consequences. Psychologically, your life's profound insights reveal critical truths about leadership. Your profound insecurities, paranoia, and narcissism illustrate how dangerous emotionally dysfunctional leaders become when wielding absolute power. Modern psychological research underscores the importance of mental health, emotional intelligence, and psychological stability in leadership roles, using your example as an essential case study. Your regime's profound human cost, millions suffering oppression, violence, poverty, and war, illustrates authoritarianism's devastating consequences. Human rights organizations worldwide reference your atrocities, emphasizing international cooperation, accountability, and vigilance against oppression. Your life's brutal outcomes reinforce the global commitment to human rights, compassion, and empathy. Your enduring legacy, paradoxically, inspires democracies worldwide toward greater vigilance and resilience. Your cautionary tale motivates citizens to engage actively in protecting democratic values, human dignity, and freedom. Your life's lessons profoundly underscore the crucial responsibilities citizens carry in defending their societies from authoritarian threats. Ultimately, Benito Mussolini, your story endures as a haunting, powerful reminder of humanity's potential for both greatness and darkness. Your life vividly illustrates ambition's dangers when unchecked by compassion, humility, and morality. Your legacy compels continuous reflection, vigilance, and dedication to democracy, human rights, and responsible governance. Your history remains forever etched into global consciousness, serving as an eternal warning about authoritarianism's allure and devastating consequences. The world remembers your rise and fall, committed to ensuring such tragedies never occur again. Your life offers profound insights, vital lessons, and lasting inspiration toward a more compassionate, responsible, and democratic future. This was your final reflection, your life's enduring message, a timeless, powerful reminder of humanity's critical responsibility in protecting freedom, democracy, and human dignity, drawn from your tragic journey as Benito Mussolini.